Good evening, Rotarians and guests. My name is Sap D, and I'm your MC for tonight's monthly evening gathering of Rotary Melbourne.
Because we're next to Reg.
We begin tonight by acknowledging the Wurundjeri and Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and also pay our respects to elders past, present, and future, and extend that respect to all Indigenous Australians present today. We are so pleased that you can all make it to our special spring event. We have with us Professor Catherine Kroc, AM, founder of Hush Foundation, and colleague Lucy Mays, who will tell us a little bit about Hush and future events later in the meeting. Also here are musicians, tuba player Charlotte Hornauer, a tuba player from Ansbach, Germany. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Sponsored by Rotary Central Melbourne and Rotary Melbourne under Rotary's New Generation Service Exchange Program, and David Cram AM, Chair of the Rotary Melbourne Arts Committee. Charlotte will shortly play a welcoming piece accompanied by David Cram. Also performing throughout the rest of the event, we're delighted to welcome members of the Invictus String Quartet. Please join me in making them all welcome.
Well done, sir.
Without further ado, Charlotte and David will now perform. David, I'll hand over to you to make an introduction.
Thank you, Sap Day. Thank you, Rotarians. Thank you, guests. So Charlotte and I will be playing a short excerpt from a very well-known brass piece by a Danish composer, Rundal, originally written for trombone. Now, I will announce that in a few minutes, but we will be brief because I will be welcoming to the podium Alan Seal. So Alan is from Melbourne, Central Melbourne Rotary Club, and for some years Alan and I, thank you, have been organising as an inter-club activity a special exchange program called NGSE. I do the musical program part and Alan does the main part. Please welcome to the podium Alan Seal.
Thanks, David, and thanks to Rotary Melbourne for having me. I'm delighted to be here because this is, I think, the 5th year in which we've run this program. And the one thing I did want to say in particular is how grateful we are to David for the work he has done to organise a lot of tuition and unique opportunities for Charlotte while she's here. I did the brass band bit. That was fairly straightforward, but David managed to get Charlotte in to meet and have some tuition from the lead tuba player from the MSO. She's been to the con, she's been to other music events all through David. So David, thank you very much, and thank you to Rotary Melbourne. This program is an opportunity for young professionals to travel to another country and observe and participate in their chosen profession. And in Charlotte's case, she's finished school with a strong focus on music. And to show her credentials, she went to the Juilliard School for an audition recently. Was in the final 12, but didn't make the one place that they granted. But that's a reflection of her talent, and you'll see some of that in a minute. But it's a program that we thoroughly like because it's to help the development of young people. We send young Australian singers to Nuremberg, and they participate in the Beirut Young Artists Festival every year through a fellow called Michael Fisher, who's our key German contact. So we've been able to accelerate the development of young opera singers who come from Melbourne, which is one of the reasons I love the program. Thanks for listening to me, and I'll hand you back to David.
After Charlotte plays, I'll introduce her to say a few words of thanks. But basically, Charlotte has been learning 3 instruments. Her own instrument, the tuba, and I'm indebted to Keith Callanan for lending Charlotte his tuba. He has 2. I never really knew. What you don't know about your own club members, eh? And also to Rosemary Nixon for agreeing to drive Charlotte as needed. Charlotte has been able to involve herself in the youth orchestra, Melbourne Youth Orchestra, attend classes at Melbourne Conservatorium, and have private lessons on 3 instruments, tuba and chimbasso, and nobody really has heard of chimbasso, but and of course she has her euphonium with her for this piece, which I'll now introduce. As I said, it is the part of the first movement of a trombone concerto beloved among brass players, which I actually conducted in the Melbourne Town Hall when I first came to the Victorian College of the Arts. But it is transcribed for euphonium. It was written in 1924 by the Danish composer and conductor Launi Rundal. Please welcome Charlotte. Thank you, Charlotte. Thanks, everybody. Now, please welcome Charlotte, who will say a few words and greetings from her hometown of Ansbach in the center of Germany.
First of all, I want to thank you all for having me here. I want to thank David for organizing some really great lessons with amazing tuba players in Melbourne. I'm really excited to be here. I've had a very great time over the last 3 weeks, and I have 2 weeks left for my stay here, and I'm hoping to make the most of it. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Please join me in welcoming Kath and Lucy.
Yes, so as it said at the beginning, I'm a doctor at the Royal Children's, and I've been there coming up 30 years now. My job is to do bone marrow tests and lumbar punctures on the children with leukemia. And as you can imagine, that is a pretty stressful environment. And it was actually sitting down talking to the patients and the families nearly 30 years ago and asking them about their experiences. What could we do better to improve the experience when you're going through such a long-term illness and, you know, quite a scary journey. And it was the parents who said, could we have some music? What I started doing was bringing the music teachers who were teaching my own children. I would bring them into the hospital and put them in the corner of an operating room or a waiting room. and they could talk to the staff, they could talk to the patients and families, and then go away and think about how they can compose for that particular environment. It's been quite exciting. We had no idea that we would still be going so many years later. We've done 21 albums of new Australian music, which has been purpose-made for these sort of settings. And as you saw, Kate Miller-Heideke, we went into maternity care. We've been into a lot of paediatric settings. And just at the moment, we're working with a group of 9 composers who all play neoclassical piano. And we've taken them into the Cabrini Women's Mental Health Unit. We workshopped with the patients there and we workshopped with the staff, and we're waiting to see what music comes out of that, but that should be ready later this year. And several of those composers happily say, we've had lived experience of mental illness and we're really invested in doing the best that we can for this Hush project. So the other thing that Hush started to do in about the year 2009 was work with actors and playwrights. We've written 3 plays, theatrical plays, about the culture and behaviour, what goes on behind the scenes in healthcare that can make the work more difficult for us health professionals, and also can make the journey for patients and families less safe and more difficult. And we're using the arts in this way to really highlight some important issues and to engage audiences to think differently about their work and about their workplace. Out of the feedback of putting these plays on 200 times in hospitals all around the country and internationally, the Hush team started to get quite concerned about what we were hearing about a culture that was not supportive of the health professionals, a culture that was not good for their well-being and their joy in their work. We really were quite disturbed, and we thought we want to do something about this, but we don't want to be talking about bullying and bad behaviour and burnout. We'd like to talk about what is the sort of health system that we would all like, one that's kind to the people working in it and kind to the people receiving care. So in 2015, we came up with a concept of a gathering of kindness. So really a social movement to try and build this idea that we want a kind health system and we need everybody's voice at the table to help us do that. So patients and families and health professionals all together working on how we can do this better. We've been running a gathering of kindness every year since then, and it's so exciting that Rotary is one of our partners in really trying to help get this out there so we can make it an unstoppable movement, a really positive movement. I'd now like to bring Lucy Mays onto the stage. Lucy's our engagement manager for the Hush Foundation, and we actually met years ago now when Lucy was writing her book Beyond the Stethoscope, and we sat in a cafe and she interviewed me about some of the things I'd gone through in my healthcare work journey. And yeah, it was really inspiring to sit together and talk about it and then end up in Lucy's book, which is having an impact right around the world, Lucy. So I pulled Lucy into the Hush team about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and yeah, we're a great partnership. As long as we've got people to contain some of our ideas, because we tend to get pretty excited. Anyway, Lucy's going to tell you a little bit more about some of the things that we're doing and things that are coming up that we'd love Rotary to get involved in. Thanks, Lucy.
I'm Dr. Catherine Crock and I work as a doctor at the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne. My career there started looking after children with leukemia and other cancers. And quite early on, I came to realise how stressful the environment was for the patients and for the families. I spoke to a lot of the families and they said, maybe we could have some music that might help to calm us when we're really anxious about our children's procedures. And out of that grew the Hush Foundation.
When we first met with Kathy, she called us into the Children's Hospital. You know, within 10 minutes we were in an operating theatre with her. You know, she really wants you to experience what this music is actually doing in that place. And so we were in there and, you know, saw a procedure, saw a family coming in that obviously very distressed at the time, and you know, this environment with fluorescent lighting and concrete everywhere, it's, you know, it's not the warmest of places, but seeing what the music actually created and the kind of, you know, the way people started breathing differently as soon as they heard what was happening, was very, very profound.
Creatively, you know, it was a really interesting exercise for me to kind of give myself permission to write more explicitly about motherhood. Catherine arranged a visit for me to go and see some patients at a maternal ward in a hospital, at the Mercy Hospital. A lot of what they said, you know, ended up making its way into my song lyrics.
It's such a beautifully intentioned initiative to bring kindness into spaces of sickness or disconnection or isolation is such a simple yet very powerful human thing to bring to people when they are at their most vulnerable.
There's a lot of generosity on the table with this project, and I feel it comes from the actual Hush motto, you know, being human, you know, about humanity, about helping someone.
Hush music is now played in hospitals all around the country and even around the world. It's in palliative care and aged care, paediatrics, adult care. This music has been developed for people who are going through some really tough times and some difficult challenges. So it's been carefully crafted for that brief, and therefore it works in everyday life, and it can help anybody who's going through difficult times.
There is a need for this. It's something that hasn't existed before, and it's transformed the health space. It's such a rewarding thing to be involved with. There's just so much goodwill. It's been a remarkable Australian music success story.
Thank you, everybody. It's a great privilege to be here, and I'd just like to reiterate our thanks to the Rotary Club of Melbourne for this partnership and for your support, particularly Reg Smith. Thank you on tech over there, multitasker extraordinaire. And I'd also like to just mention that I have a very personal connection with the Rotary Club of Melbourne and with Rotary more broadly, and for which I'm very, very grateful. An exchange year, as many of you will know from having heard no doubt many speeches from returning exchange students over the years, is a life-changing experience, and it was a great privilege for me, and it kicked off a lifetime relationship with Rotary. In fact, I went on to run the Rotary Youth Leadership Award program, and I've been involved with them now for almost 30 years, which makes me feel quite old. But that has been an extraordinary privilege and experience too. So I have a lot of affection for and understanding of how Rotary works and the impact that you all make. So we're very grateful. I think it helps sometimes to start with a bit of personal storytelling, and Kath's told a little bit about her personal story about how she got involved in designing this work. And my story is that I live in the country and I'm married to a rural GP obstetrician, Richard, and he loves his job and loves his community with a great passion. However, I was reading all of the magazines that used to pile up on our kitchen table that he never had time to read, the trade, the industry magazines, and I was reading more and more about the emotional state of healthcare practitioners and burnout, emotional distress and suicidality. And I thought to myself, I think I could be living with a potential statistic here. It was actually incredibly distressing watching the amount of pressure that the system put on him and the demands that not only the system made of him, but he made of himself because of the acculturation of needing to be available at all times for all people, for all things. And it was unsustainable and not healthy. So I went looking for doctors to share stories with me about hope in the profession and how they sustain themselves and how they make a difference when they see or are part of conditions that aren't necessarily conducive to thriving for anybody, for the patients as well as the practitioners. And so I collected some really beautiful stories, and as Catherine has shared, she was one of them. And I'm really delighted to work for the Hush Foundation now in continuing the mission to transform healthcare cultures with kindness and through the arts,
It's very beautiful work. So when we started working with Rotary, Reg said to me, Rotarians love to get behind something tangible, you know, don't just share the story and ask for money, you know, get them involved. So we put our little thinking caps on and tried to figure out what that might look like. And if you wouldn't mind popping through the slides, please, Reg. I haven't actually kept track of where I'm up to with the slides. What I wanted to tell you about was, so one of our big projects is to run these gatherings of kindness, and we run them once a year in World Kindness Week generally. And of course during COVID years we had to start running them online, and then post-COVID we got really ambitious and decided to run them both in person and online. And this year we're designing a gathering of kindness in collaboration with the Institute for Healthcare Improvements. They've got a big international forum on healthcare improvement and quality and safety coming to Melbourne, so people from all over the world coming to Melbourne for this forum. So we're running our Gathering of Kindness event on Sunday the 29th of October so that we can align with some of those international visitors, and they've been generous enough to be keen to support our work as well, and they're coming to present to our audiences. Then we also will be running an online program, but the way in which we'd love to invite Rotarians to be involved is what we're calling the DIY Gathering of Kindness kit. So the big dream is to get beyond the big organisations as our kind of partners, and ask our community members to support us to get into the smaller organisations who might not have necessarily the resources or even the bandwidth to organise their own gathering of kindness. And so we thought Rotarians might be interested in supporting that process. So going to your local clinic or aged care service and asking if they would be open to you hosting a gathering of kindness, and perhaps, you know, as an act of gratitude and celebration. So the language and the frame of reference that we use is all about what's going well, what people are doing well, what you can notice and elevate in people's behaviour. So it might be kind words from patients to staff, or it might be kind actions the other way around, and maybe patients telling a story about what that means to them. It might be inviting some of our beautiful musicians. The Invictus Quartet have supported the Gathering of Kindness and the Hush Foundation for a long time, and play some of our original music, and often play in hospitals connected through us, and we've got other very well-known musicians on our books who are happy to come and play. But it also might be your local school group or kindy choir, or whoever you can magic up to take to your local health service. We'd like to invite you to, in the week of World Kindness Week, which is the 13th to the 17th of November this year, to join us and to help us spread the word. We're a tiny team with micro resources. We're a very small charity, and we really just would love your support to get traction and spread this message into the world, and do with it what inspires you. What would a gathering of kindness look like for you? It might even be a morning tea in your own home with some friends and a conversation about kindness and what that looks like. And of course we're all recipients. Most of us are recipients in the healthcare system, and we probably should care how the system and its practitioners are travelling. And we also all know we're not too far from the news to know that the system's struggling even more post-COVID. So to share our gratitude and to celebrate and to capture the good stories and help nurture and nourish more of the same, I think is a real gift in return and in all directions. So we have some information in flyers on the table over there, and we can help you to host a gathering of kindness. You can do it completely in your own way, shape and form, without any need to have our support, or we'd invite you to sign up and let us know if you think you'd be interested in hearing more, or you could take a flyer and have a think about it and get in touch with us later. And we would just love to collaborate with you. So we do have some physical kindness kits that we're developing together with one of our partners, who are the Philanthropist Press Room Philanthropy. And so that's going to be some Pass It On kindness cards, some postcards, which includes a free link to our latest Hush album with Slava Gregorian, which is Gratitudes, which he wrote during COVID by way of saying thank you to our healthcare professionals. and posters and flyers and all sorts of other things to help help a clinical environment or an aged care environment to really showcase using our message that kindness works here. And we'd just like to close with a little bit of a visual, I suppose, of what a gathering of kindness. Oh, I meant to tell you about these events, music events. Yes, please come to our music events. Reg, you're doing an amazing job keeping up with me with no indication from me of what I do. Thank you very much. So we've got a very special event coming up shortly, Friday the 22nd of September, which is featuring some of the pianists who are going to be part of our next project, the Seeking Solace project. And that's at Tempo Rubato, which is a classical music venue in Brunswick. And then the Australian Doctors Orchestra has their 30th year anniversary concert on the 8th of October, and we are their chosen charity partner. So all proceeds from that concert will come to Hush. However, it's our job to get people to come to the concert to make that dream a reality, and we would really love your support to not only come along but also share with your friends and networks, because I imagine there are some music lovers amongst you. In fact, I know there are some music lovers amongst you. I also know there are some healthcare professionals amongst you, so lots of synergies. And then of course we've got our Gathering of Kindness events, which we would invite you to if that's of interest also. And as Kath said, we invite all voices to the table to be part of these really important conversations, and we have storytelling from patients and families and creative offerings, including more live music. We've got the Melbourne Youth Orchestra playing along with Nat Barch on piano this year. We've got a huge collaborative art project. We've got one of our theatre productions being showcased, and we've got a lot about the science of kindness and the impact that that makes. The next one's a video. Thank you. Thanks for your attention and your interest.
Morning sun touches your face and you smile. Seems like nothing can ever compare. You're so worthwhile, singing tunes and dancing in the afternoon. I'll still have one strong arm like a lobster, just for carrying you around.
I've had the privilege of working with Hush for about 5 years now. The first time we played was in 2018, and it also had a very profound, it was a very profound experience for us. And so yeah, it's really special that we can come back here and play some music for you. We're actually going to play 2 pieces, and they are featured in the first video that you saw earlier. It is from the Collective Wisdom album, volume 18. And so the first piece we're playing is Moon Feather Magic by Elena Katz-Chernin. And the second one is Nothing Is Forever by Matthew Heinzen. And we hope you enjoy it. Thank you.